It's time for Chicagoland Golf with the editor and publisher of Chicagoland Golf Magazine, Phil Kosin. The show where for the next 2 hours, you'll get the latest info from the PGA Tour, local tournaments, and tips for your golf game. And now, your host, Phil Kosin.
Thank you, boys. Sitting here looking at the turntable, going around and around my head trying to read the label. Oh, the tournament, what used to be the Western Open Polka. That's why we're playing it, because this is the traditional weekend that, well, actually the tournament that the Tour hijacked and turned into the BMW Championship. That's what we've got this weekend. They took the Western Open and converted it into something extremely popular. That was the whole big deal, because that FedEx Cup was just going to captivate everybody in golf. And obviously, I could see how after 2 years this tournament is just gripping people. By the way, we'll talk later on in the show about the LPGA. I don't know if you know. We'll follow the news for you. You guys just go out and play. The LPGA rescinded their policy of having a penalty for any of their players that couldn't speak passable English. And that's really sad. Where else? California, a group of lawmakers, I think they are mostly minorities, and other people threatened to get a court injunction against the LPGA Tour operating with that rule in the state of California. And because the LPGA Tour has 2 events in a 3-week period at the beginning of the month of October out in California, they quickly folded, which is really a shame. Because I thought the LPGA, in their original release 11 days ago when they announced this, they said that they had their crack legal team, these are my words, their crack legal team had checked out, and this was a sound rule. They wouldn't have a problem with it should there be some sort of a challenge. Well, apparently that's not the case. They folded their tents as soon as the story ran on the wire that these folks, state legislators and people like that in California, were getting together a little minority group to throw some roadblocks in front of the LPGA. So they capitulated. And we might have someone to talk to from the LPGA Tour, one of the players, later on in the show. All right, let's go to St. Louis. Soggy St. Louis, where the BMW Championship, or as we like to call it, the tournament, which used to be the Western Open, is going on this weekend. And we talked to our old friend, seasoned observer, Tim Cronin. Hi, Tim.
Hi there. I didn't know I was a seasoned observer. Some people thought I was more like ham on rye, but I'll take that. Down here this week, going to have a little something in the Southtown Star on Tuesday about it, doing some website work and a little freelance here and there along the way. And even as I speak, headed to the little town of Town and Country, where Bell Reef Golf Course, or Country Club rather, is located, on a very foggy morning. So they may well have to delay the start of festivities here if this fog doesn't lift. I'm just coming over the Mississippi right now, and it's pea soup here.
Well, they're supposed to play 36 holes today, and I got news for you, Shorty. They don't have that much light at this time of year.
That's exactly right. The final group in the afternoon, the leaders as of yesterday's nightfall, Camilo Villegas being the absolute leader at 65, goes off at 2:20. And you got to figure a 5-hour round in threesomes in this crowd, given it's the PGA Tour and everybody likes to look over everything 3 times on the green. We're talking about a 7:20 finish. Now, it does get dark about 8 o'clock, so they should be able to squeeze it in. but that's without a delay at the start. And they're going to have lights they're probably on right now at the driving range.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
And they'll have lights at the driving range to get them going that way. But if there's a delay on the first tee, oh boy, the clock will be ticking. And we've had 36-hole days in the Western before. This is number 105 if you're scoring at home, but not in a long time, and not in September. How about in July at Butler National?
Yeah, that little interruption there, that little blast of whatever it was. I forgot I had the volume turned up on my notebook computer, and when I tapped in to the PGA Tour website, you know how they have those automatic videos that pop up with that silly girl on there, bringing you up to date with the music in the background. Today, guess what we're going to do? We're going to play golf. That thing you don't have a choice, and all of a sudden there it was, and I didn't realize that I had so I apologize for that interruption.
And it's not a polka song, so why would you want to listen to it anyway?
Well, today we went back into the polka archives, and we found a polka called the tournament, what used to be known as the Western Open polka, believe it or not.
So I heard. It's amazing that you would have that on those stack of 78 in your closet.
Well, we don't throw anything away here.
Oh, by the way, the role of Emily Latella is now being played by Carolyn Bivens, in case you're wondering.
Yeah, we could talk about that a little bit later on. Well, anyway, let's talk about, because you and I have so much to talk about. I want to talk a little bit about history today. Let's get this out of the way first. The excitement level down there, is it just unbelievable?
Actually, believe it or not, it's very good. Remember, St. Louis does not get much professional golf. The last regular tour, if you will, stop, and it happened to be a major, was at Belle Reve in 1992, at least one that played all the way through. In 2001, they had the Amex Championship scheduled for Belle Reve, but that was the week of September 11, and so practice rounds on Tuesday the 11th were canceled, and the rest of the tournament was simply knocked off the map. They never played it. And so people down here have been itching for big-time golf. All they've had is senior tour and LPGA events for really 16 years. There were 25,000 people out at Belle Reve yesterday for the rain-delayed first round, and that is stunning because they couldn't park at their usual parking lot next to Belle Reve. Credit John Kaskowski and the folks at the Western Golf Association for literally renting every bus available in the St. Louis metropolitan area from Thursday night to Friday morning, putting together an alternate parking plan, renting an amphitheater parking lot about 8 miles away. A shuttle system was thrown together, and everybody showed up. It was really impressive. It was like running Dunkirk for a golf course, and they got it done. And the people who were here, and 25,000 is as many tickets as they sold, all on season passes, the way it works down here, they were thrilled to have this tournament. Do they care about the FedEx Cup? I doubt it. As somebody said in the press room yesterday, trying to figure out how this works is like playing mahjong. You just don't know who's ahead. And Vijay Singh's the leader, but all we know is that he's the leader. What happens after that? Who knows? Steve Stricker can't figure out how it works, and he's one of the contenders. So nobody really is paying attention to that. But as a golf tournament, they love it.
Well, where's Patrick Harrington stand, the guy who won the last two majors?
On the cusp of being out, though he played reasonably well yesterday. I think he had a 69.
What does he have to do this week? What does he have to do this weekend to stay in?
It depends on what others do. That's the tricky part. He's 44th. You have to get to 30. But, how well he plays also is dependent upon, in terms of the standings, on how well others play. So it's not an absolute. And that's probably the problem with this thing. It's not like looking at baseball or football or hockey standings where you know where you stand after a game. Here it's like, well, what did everybody else do? The permutations are endless, and that's one. That would be true even if they use the money list. It's just too complicated for an average fan to follow, or for the golf writer who finds it interesting. I don't find it particularly compelling, but it's interesting to see how it works. How it works is you got to wait till it's over and then find out.
It's like going to an auto race and watching the cars go around and race each other, and you don't know who's on what lap.
Yeah, exactly. Without a scoreboard to tell you. I mean, they try and keep you up to date with up to the second standings, but even that's useless too because 4 holes over, somebody's making a birdie putt and everything jumbles again. So you just have to wait. Yeah, it's like qualifying session here. who's going to win the tournament? That's all anybody really ever cares about. So, all this other stuff is just, extra baggage for the television network to shove down people's throats.
Isn't that a little anal, though, to be every time a guy makes a putt or makes a birdie, to be changing the whole score? I mean, we all know golf has so many highs and lows during a round for people. It's meaningless.
Oh, exactly. And that's going to be the fun of today in terms of the Western itself, is that you've got 36 holes. And, of course, there's no cut in this because we only have 69 players to start with. If somebody gets on a roll in the morning round and can carry it through to the afternoon round, they can move up considerably, or if they're already close to the lead, they could run away with it.
Any look reminiscent of the Western Open or anything like that, or is this completely BMW? Did they take over a parking lot and bring out? Describe the midway, so to speak.
Well, the midway was kind of over on the regular parking lot that Belle Reve uses, a place called Hunter Farms, which is immediately to the west. And that was washed out, essentially. It's like a Cog Hill parking lot in that it's grass on old farmland, but it's more hilly and doesn't drain as well. As John Kaskowski said, we can't just call Mount Sissy and use the next parking lot, as there isn't another parking lot. So they had to go to the backup plan. That means the midway was all messed up. But remember how Cog Hill looked last year for the tournament with all the BMW trappings? All those trappings are down here, complete to the little half flags that they have flying, and BMWs sitting on top of corporate tents, or near the top anyway, and all the paraphernalia. The only way you find a reference to the WGA is if you see a green jacket walking around. Otherwise, it is all BMW all the time. And it's a very small footprint, Belle Reve, compared to the 1,100 acres of Cog Hill. So everything's kind of crammed together, which is one other kind of problem. That's why they only sold 25,000 tickets. They don't think they can fit anybody else in here, and I can understand that. Today is the day that people who had the tickets in the ticket booklet for Thursday, they can come out today or tomorrow. They couldn't come out yesterday because the WJ just didn't think they'd have enough buses. So today and tomorrow are their day, and if you get more than 30 out here, it might be hard to move on some holes. Whereas at Cog Hill, as Frank Chemsick would tell you, you can bring in everybody.
Yeah, you can. That one year they had 63,000 on Sunday for Tiger Woods, and there was still room to move around. 1997. It was never announced. But
they sold a lot of hot dogs that day.
A lot of those butterfly barbecue pork chops that the fire department used to cook up on that hill, but we don't have that. We don't have that anymore.
No, you don't have Pork Chop Hill down here either, unfortunately. No, if you had it yesterday, a few people might have slid down. I'll say this much for Belle Reve. They put $9.5 million in improvements in here, some on the golf course and much of it on the infrastructure, 13 or 16 miles of new drainage and much of it underground. And, boy, it worked like a charm. There were no puddles, even on the low-lying areas, and it was only mushy in a few spots. So they were able to play. They played lift, clean, and place, which you and I don't like. But they probably
lift, clean, and cheat.
That too, yes. And still the low score was only 65, which happened to match the course record here set by Maggart back in the 92 PGA. But you probably didn't even have to do that. It was so good out there. Conditions were spectacular, so lucky them.
It's a fine golf course. It's the first golf course I ever played that had zoysia in the fairways.
Yeah, and that holds up very well under wet conditions like this. It was like a carpet out there that just needed maybe a shampoo if you wanted to put it inside.
You correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't Reese Jones do the remodeling work down there?
Yes, he did, and he lived to tell about it because he played in the Pro-Am on Wednesday and made it through.
Yeah, most people in golf, for whatever reason, by the way, it's 6:14 in Chicago. You know, and golf shows do we have this season? As he takes out his handy little pocket calendar, looks like we have 3 more after today. And I think Tim Cronin, I'm glad I've got those because I'm sure that sooner or later I'm going to get captivated by this FedEx Cup thing. And right now I'm just speechless in anticipation of the Ryder Cup.
I can hear it in your voice. Yeah, there's the Ryder Cup. Yes, that comes 2 weeks from now. After next week, the PGA Tour takes the season completely off, And then against the Ryder Cup, they play a regular tour event that doesn't count toward the Tour Championship standings that would be played the week after. So the fall series starts before summer's over, I guess is how it works. They've done it again. More complicated than ever. If they want to play this, they should just play 3 new events that were created out of nowhere at the end of the year and leave the regular tour events, the Westchester Classic, which no longer is played at Westchester Country Club, and the one in Boston, and the Western Open alone. But they didn't do that. And I don't know how they unring that bell unless they lose all their sponsors, and their sponsors seem to be happy with it. So go figure.
So you think that even despite there is a downturn in automobile sales, BMW's happy, and you think you seem to think, at least the vibes you're picking up down there, that FedEx is completely thrilled with the way this is going?
They're getting relatively good publicity from it. The television ratings haven't been great this year.
Where are they getting good publicity? In St. Louis?
I mean, in a general sense, they are. They think they're getting their bang for their buck, as far as I can tell. So I don't
see that, though. Wait.
I haven't seen a high-ranking FedEx guy around here yet.
Hold on. You and I are too immersed in reading stuff about golf. Let's look at from the standpoint of the average person. Now, last weekend, we finished up the golf tournament. A lot of the golf tournaments finished up on Monday. I looked in Tuesday morning's Chicago Tribune, and there was a space that was 5 inches by about 4 inches that contained all of the capsules of what happened in golf. Okay? It was almost lost. You had to look for it in between all the stuff with the Bears, the White Sox, and the Cubs. So I don't understand where they're getting all this publicity. I mean, you know, as far as the Western Golf Association goes, it was great timing that their event is happening down there this year because the Cardinals have pretty much faded into the sunset in the National League. I would assume then that at least this tournament is getting some front-page coverage in the St. Louis papers.
The St. Louis paper, only the Post-Dispatch survives. But yes, it is. And that's pretty obvious. And, you know, the local NBC affiliate here has done specials. And nice to see Jay Randolph on the air, by the way.
Is he still around?
He is still around and still in voice. And actually is kind of a sweetheart of a guy. And his kid does work down here, too. Jay Randolph Jr. What a coincidence that they'd both be in St. Louis. But I guess I mean in the more general sense that they think they're getting their money's worth out of it. And I say that because before they sponsored this, several years ago, they sponsored the point standings championship on the old kart series, the championship auto racing team series, IndyCar, if you will, the one that didn't really run in Indianapolis. And they got no buzz out of that, and they bagged that long-term contract after 2 years. Now they're 2 years into this one, and everything, at least in terms of their relationship with the PGA Tour, seems to be hunky-dory. And it's a 6-year deal. So you would think that they would have a 3-year out clause somewhere along the line, or maybe a 4-year, and you might hear rumblings by now. We've heard nothing so far, and that includes the people who follow this tour week to week to week to week as they go around the trail, most of whom are here this week, some of whom left because of pending hurricanes hitting Florida, Carolinas, and whatnot.
Right, where all the golf writers live.
Exactly.
I don't think that's the kind of thing that the tour would let out, though. I mean, look at the words that come out of the PGA Tour. I mean, it's like those people are so naive talking about this thing. They still talk about this thing in a sense that it has no reality to it.
Well, that's their job to do the PR. That's why I tried to parse it a little bit. But obviously, if you only get 5 inches of golf in the Tribune on Monday, and congratulations, by the way, for still reading a newspaper on paper. We like you guys. We need more of you these days, given this state of the newspaper business. You're going to get that no matter if there's a playoff or not this time of year. And, you know, there's just no room in the newspapers. I don't know down the line whether or not FedEx will renew when the 6 years are up. Who knows? Or whether BMW will say, we've sold enough cars in the Midwest to have made this worthwhile, or increased our market share nationally, or have at least gotten bang for the buck. I'm just not sure. But so far, so good, apparently.
Well, I wrote a piece last week as a column. I had written it, first put it up online, as I sometimes do, and then moved it over into my column. and it questioned whether or not the Western Golf Association, and I don't care how hunky-dory everybody says this whole thing is, I still think they need to have a contingency plan in case suddenly FedEx says, you know what, this ain't working out how we wanted it to work out. We're not real thrilled with it. So you know what we're going to do? We're going to bail out early. And then at that point, if that happens, and it's not outside the realm of possibility, let's admit that. And then at that point, does BMW want to champion a regular tour event? And what kind of dates would the Western end up with? They're stuck on September. Now, fortunately, in the last couple of weeks, the membership at Congressional, I guess they voted for the AT&T National to be extended through the year 2017. But the membership wants it moved to May, to the middle of May, which opens up the old 4th of July dates for the Western Golf Association should something happen. Because without those dates, they're screwed. They're going to be either the week before, the week of, or the week after a major, and those dates stink. Your take?
That's true. Of course, I've heard John Kaskowski say that if he had his absolute druthers, this is before the whole playoff thing came up, that they wouldn't mind playing in early August, which Western did on a couple of occasions in the late 80s, as you might recall, and got fine crowds out at beautiful downtown Oak Brook at Butler National Golf Club. Now, whether or not they'd want to try that date again if the situation developed, I don't know. But John has always been worried about the taste of Chicago impinging upon the interest in the Western Open and the Cubs and Sox and potential good situations. Well, they're in pretty good situations right now, and plus you have football season to contend with when you come back to Chicago. If you remember the first round of last year's tournament at Cock Hill, it looked like a really good day for an LPGA weekday tournament. There was nobody there, essentially, and maybe 8,000, 10,000 people. And they even gave up announcing crowds because they knew they'd be embarrassed. Down here, they had a better crowd, but it's a one-off. So as I say, St. Louis doesn't get golf very. That's their biggest problem about playing in September, getting actual bodies out to Cog Hill on the weekdays, because it's just not the right time of year for golf spectating in Chicago. So they have to get out of school season and football season one way or the other down the line. I think it'll help them much better. And if they get their own identity back and put their name on the tournament once again, well, hooray. We both want that.
Well, it just seems to me that no matter what dates you choose in Chicago, because this is such a great city and a great sports and entertainment town, you're always going to be butting heads. There's no such thing as an open weekend. I mean, I ran into that when I was trying to schedule the Illinois Women's Open and make the other women's golf organizations happy. You just can't do it. Tim, let's take a break. Tim Cronin's on the phone with us this morning from Bellerive in St. Louis, or at least he's on his way there to eat the free breakfast that they shovel out for the golf writers. It's 6:29 in Chicago. I'm Phil Kosin. This is the Chicagoland Golf Show, and you're listening to CBS Radio up here in Chicago. The Score, Sports Radio 6. Yeah, we're coming up on 6:34 on a Saturday morning in Chicago. Looks like pretty good golf weather. Unfortunately, we're kind of ticking the days down. Although we still have daylight savings time for quite a while. That's not about to go away soon. I don't know about you, Dave White, but the sun going down early every night, and then, when we first started, back in June, the sun was out and shining when we'd go on the air at 6 o'clock, and it stays dark a lot later today.
Yeah, I know. It's a little depressing. What's funny is my 2-year-old now, when she goes to bed at night, it's dark. She's like, hey, it's dark. She's used to going to bed at night and everything, so it's really funny to see her reaction now. But, yeah, it's a little depressing knowing that summer's come to an end.
Well, that's what kids are for, to amuse us. This segment on The Score is brought to you by the DQ Hot Dog of the Week. Win a Dairy Queen gift card. Log on to 670thescore.com for the DQ Hot Dog of the Week contest information. And I'm going to pass up a great opportunity to crack one off there, and I'll just say Tim Cronin is with us for this final segment on Saturday morning. He's down at St. Louis. He's monitoring. He's making sure they do everything right down at the BMW Championship. Tim, I want to talk a little bit about the LPGA Tour and their English-only edict, and then, factor in what happened yesterday. They bailed out of the whole thing. They got cold feet. They blinked when it looked like they were going to get challenged in court in California. Your take on the whole thing?
I'm not surprised this went haywire. I thought it was a bad idea from the start in the way they presented it. They've had a language program actually for 3 years, or maybe 2. I can't remember precisely now, which I did not realize. And I think few did outside those who actually play on the tour and happen to have a need for it. But they have had something. And now, before I get run over by this van, let me just wait a minute here. All right, they
where are you, man on the street? Are you man on the street?
I'm just about. I'm walking to the press tent. By the way, no fog here at Belle Reef, so I'm sure they'll start on time. And just getting to the press tent, or as I like to call it these days, the media center. I don't know if it's really in the center. It's more off to the side. But
well, please don't have a heart attack while we're on the air, okay?
No, that's fine. No. I'm doing fine, thank you very kindly. It's a lovely day, and it's a downhill walk. But the good news is that, they have had something. Just that Carolyn Bivens is so ham-handed in virtually everything she does. We saw that a couple of years ago when they announced that they wanted to... Hang on a second. When they announced that they wanted to have a policy whereby the LPGA would own all the coverage that any outlet did, even print, broadcast, photography, whatnot, from any LPGA event. And that started with the first term of the year in Hawaii. Well, you know what happened then. Everybody boycotted it, and they had to throw that out the window right away. That didn't last a week. This lasted 11 days. So I guess you might say she's getting better. But you sure can't prove it by me. I can't imagine that the LPGA, which needs all the good publicity it can get, could have a worse commissioner at this point than Carolyn, where they get more bad publicity than anything else, if they get any publicity at all. Let's face it, how many times do you look in the course of a week, and you're the most golf nut I know, and see what's going on at their tournament? I would bet you it's once every 3 weeks, unless you know somebody on the tour.
Well, yeah, I do, and I have my own. A lot of them are Illinois Women's Open alumni, and I do keep an eye on both the LPGA Tour and the Futures Tour. And the reason I said this was because I've talked to some of those players during the week, and pretty much to a woman, they were all greatly in favor of this program. You're right, it may have been a little ham-handed the way it was announced with the penalties, but there is a problem out there. They do make the language services and some tutoring available to these Korean players and all players that don't speak English, but they don't participate. That's the problem. They hang around in cliques, and they only talk their own native language amongst themselves. There's no effort to learn English. And I disagree with you, because I think that the playing part is only a small part of that job. Those people are entertainers, and a big part of that is being able to be a good host and make sure that your pro-am partners enjoy going out and playing 18 holes with you, because they've ponied up some pretty heavy bucks to do that.
Well, that's all very
and
true.
Nobody wants. Wait, let me finish. Nobody wants to play 18 holes with someone that doesn't speak to them at all for 18 holes.
No, if they want to do that, they could have gone to the senior tour years ago and played with Bruce Crampton. But isn't it a surprise that professional sports seems once again much like high school or junior high school? Everybody wants to stay in their own little crowd. I'm shocked to find that out. The language problem is a problem. There's just got to be a better way to resolve it and to fix it up, and at least give them passable English and do it in a way where the whole operation doesn't get pilloried. That's the big problem here. Apparently, there were some sponsors, not just the California legislators who didn't like the concept, but some sponsors, including, I understand, State Farm, which not only sponsors the old Rail Classic down in Springfield, but is a big television sponsor on that tour, at least has been, these last 2 years really didn't like the publicity they were getting in reflection from the LPGA. And when the sponsors
well, it's all political correctness, Tim.
Yeah, when the sponsors
it's all political correctness.
Whether it is or not, when the sponsors start hollering to the sports league is going to do something different. You know that.
Well, Carolyn Bivens' problem right now is trying to replace and find title sponsors for 4 events that she's going to lose next year, and it may go to a 5th event real soon, from what I hear. And that's the problem. And so I think if there was a justification for this, I think it's out of desperation. They're trying to solidify an attractive product, and as you get more and more of these non-English speaking ladies coming out to play golf, they may be great golfers, but they're not fulfilling all of the needs of the job. And you know, it's not racist. I don't see it being racist. I don't see it being a violation of anybody's civil rights like they're talking about. You don't have any civil right to play professional golf on a tour. It's a privilege, and you have to earn it. I'll give you the final word.
I don't know how it's going to be resolved, except that at least there won't be penalties. I don't think it was ever going to come to that stage anyway. And
I don't either. I think it was a little cattle prod thrown in.
It was, but the cattle got prodded in reverse, apparently. There's a reverse shock syndrome there. I don't know how it fixes itself, and I don't know how the LPGA fixes itself with the sponsorship difficulties. That's a problem in every sport, not just in golf, but every sport that depends on title sponsorships, including auto racing and tennis these days, is looking for more sponsors, and the sponsors are looking for an event to give their money to, but less money to do it. And in this economy, good luck. It's going to be awfully tough. You could see retraction far before you see retention.
Are you in the media center right now?
I'm just outside where the sun is about to come up here. We've got
go in there and take a look at the buffet and tell me what they got for breakfast.
Well, it's been Krispy Kremes the last 2 days, so they're a high cholesterol country club here at Belle Reeve, apparently.
They don't even have the hot food like they had at Cog Hill?
Oh, they've got odds and ends here, but I couldn't tell you exactly what they were. Sometimes you see things, BMW is so fancy you don't know quite what it is. And it's not strudel, so I know it didn't come from Munich. I'm looking for Kolaskis, but you're not here, you know, so.
I'm at home making pierogies this afternoon. I'll be captive watching it on television, biting my nails to see who gets into the final 30 at the Tour Championship at Eastlake.
Don't forget, for those who are watching, at 2:30 NBC goes to Notre Dame football, and from that point forward, Golf Channel's taken over, and they'll be on until the last dog is hung down here.
Well, at least that's a benefit. It's too bad they don't have somebody that knows what they're talking about doing it on radio, so we could turn the sound down on the Golf Channel and listen to somebody that knows what they're talking about.
Well, you got to play for that job, my man.
Yeah. No, you don't. They find them. All right, Jim, I'll talk to you later. Thanks a lot. I'm glad we got to take a little trip with you this morning from your hotel all the way out to Belle Reeve.
My pleasure. Traffic and weather together. It's clear on I-270, and it's lovely in the sky. We'll see you.
All right, thanks a lot. It's Tim Cronin of the Daily Southtown. If you don't know him, he's a character. You know what, Dave White, what we should do is get him one of those... I think he was having a problem. He's probably got his laptop in a bag with him, and he's trying to hold the phone to his ear. Maybe we ought to get him a headset or something like that if we're going to have him running down hills at the golf course while he's on with us.
Yeah, we got to give him like a Bluetooth or something. He sounded like he was out of breath for a while. He was running around.
I know. I was afraid he was going to have a heart attack or something right on the air.
Well,
what do we do then?
Go to break. That's the logical thing, yeah. Go to break and then call 911.
No, we're just kidding. But that was unique. I think that was a first for the show that we had a guest like that on the move on foot while we were doing a segment. But anyway.
Sounded authentic. Sounded like we were on the scene.
It sounded like it was breaking news, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You know, it sounded like we're having fun on a Saturday morning. It's a big FedEx Cup weekend. I know what the Bears playing tomorrow night. Notre Dame getting started today. The White Sox and the Cubs playing. But in spite of all that, I'm sure that you've got a little buzz going because it is a FedEx Cup weekend. By the way, had a chat with Bob Verdi, a regular on this show, and one of the senior writers at Golf Digest and Golf World. Sorry, Bob. Bob will be joining us next week because it'll be nice to talk to someone whose level of enthusiasm is right about where mine is on both the prospects of an entertaining FedEx Cup finish this year and an entertaining Ryder Cup. Because I'm telling you, if you haven't looked at Paul Azinger's picks and the U.S. Ryder Cup team, this team could set a record. And maybe they will. Something's got to be changed. Something's got to be done. To Paul Azinger, our USA captain, to his credit, he tried to shake things up a little bit and get himself a few extra picks so he could pick players who are hot going into the Ryder Cup. Before, the original format for picking players was players would build up points on an equal basis over a 2-year period. And there was a lot of feeling, and I would agree with it, that, you get a guy that's hot the non-Ryder Cup year, and he builds up a whole bunch of points. Then he has a fairly mediocre year the second year, but because he amassed all those points the year before, he still gets on the Ryder Cup team in a year that he's not playing that well. So they've rebalanced it. They've been tinkering with it for years, and they still haven't figured out how to do it. But, wow. I mean, I will still watch it. I think the Ryder Cup is one of the greatest spectacles in golf. I think it's great television. I think the history and everything that goes along with it is terrific. And so I am definitely a big Ryder Cup fan. But I sure hope they can put on a little better show than they have the last 2 times when they've lost by huge scores. I mean, I like to see it be a little bit competitive on Sunday when they go to singles and at least have an authentic chance to win, and instead of having to win, 13 matches or whatever, or 11 or 10 matches. I'm kidding, not 13. They don't have 13 matches. To have to win like 9 matches on Sunday to tie for the Cup, there's no excitement level there. So we will look forward to that, and next week we'll talk to Bob Verdi about, the excitement that's in store for all of us at the Tour Championship at East Lake in Atlanta in a couple weeks, and then which is the week after the Ryder Cup. The Ryder Cup is the week of the 18th. So there you have it. What else did I want to tell you guys? Oh, you know what? In the last issue of Chicagoland Golf, and it was just a glitch, and some of you emailed me. We ran an ad that said that there was a special deal during September for Chicagoland Golf listeners on the Mistwood website. It was part of an ad, and Mistwood has advertised on this show in the past. When people clicked on it, it basically is a coupon for a free cart, which is worth $18. Of course, during certain times, yada, yada. But the coupon expired June 30th. So as soon as I started getting those emails, I got a hold of the guys at Mistwood, and they're friends of ours because they co-sponsor the Illinois Women's Open. And, the owner, Jim McWethy, provides the golf course pretty much for nothing. And without that, us doing the Illinois Women's Open every year wouldn't be possible. But anyway, apparently now they've gotten it all straightened out. So if you were one of those that didn't write but went and clicked on whatever it was, www.mistwoodgolf.net. Wait, let me check. Let's get it right. Yeah, www.mistwoodgolf.net /Chicagoland Golf. The right coupon for the special is on there now. So We talked about it before on this show, and I just like to get that straightened out because I know a lot of listeners are also readers. And anyway, I just like to make sure that all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted. Okay, we're going to come back in a few minutes, take another break here, and I'm looking for, we're hoping that LPGA Tour player Nicole Giray calls us after the top of the hour. She's playing today, and her schedule might be a little iffy. We're going to probably have to hurry along because she does have a tee time today, but I really wanted to ask her and get the player's view on the language barrier and what problems those create. Tim Cronin expressed his opinion. He thought it was a lousy idea to force players to speak English. I'm on the other side. I think it's a great idea, and I don't think it violates anybody's rights or anything like that. So we'll come back, and we'll see if we can get Nicole on the blower. It's, let's see, let me check the official U.S. time. It's 6:55 in Chicago. I'm Phil Kosin. This is the Chicago Sports
Radio station. Let's get back to Phil Kosin and Chicagoland Golf on 670 The Score.
This segment on The Score is brought to you by St. Charles Toyota. Get a price quote at toyota.net. And thanks for joining us this morning. Kind of a sleepy Saturday. I don't know about you. It is. Probably could have stayed in bed for another couple hours, but we have a sense of duty to entertain Mid-America. And now, right now out there are thousands of people, Dave White, going, what the hell is he talking about?
Just what sense of duty is that, right? That's what they're asking.
We serve the public, Dave.
Oh, okay. We're like elected officials?
Yeah. Okay, we're going to wait. We're going to see if we get a hold of Nicole Giray. But the phone lines are open right now, and they will be probably till the end of the show. So questions, comments, do you agree with me? Do you have your own opinions about these things? 312-644-6767. We are opening up all the phone lines. And if you're on a car phone or a cellular phone and we've got to hurry so you save your minutes, let us know, and we'll put you up a little closer to the top of the line. 312-644-6767. Kind of wonder what golf is coming to, you know, and I was making fun of this FedEx Cup, but it just doesn't feel real to me. You know, they got to... I'm sorry, Dave. Go ahead. Say that again.
I apologize. We have a gentleman named Gary on line 1.
Okay. Well, let's take Gary then. But before we go to Gary, I just want to say they're playing for $35 million in the FedEx Cup. And unfortunately, that doesn't make it a great event. Maybe the way the tour seems to think that everything is money, and we're all in awe of those numbers. We're not. And throwing $35 million into a purse that players play for over 4 weeks, it still doesn't do it for me. Maybe it does for you, but it doesn't do it for me. All right, let's take Gary. You're on with Phil Kosin on the Chicagoland Golf Show, and welcome into The Score.
Hi, Phil. How you doing? I really enjoy your show. I listen to it every Saturday on the way down to Harborside. I live up in Arlington Heights, so I make this 40-mile trek to this wonderful track. But I got to tell you, how can they charge $95 for that, for the privilege of playing this course? I really love it, but man, I'll tell you, for $95, it's like maybe $30 too much. And I just don't get it. They have 1 million people working there, but it just seems like maybe if they had.
That's part of the reason it costs $95. You know, we've talked about green fees and how golf courses set green fees, and at most courses, the ones that don't have the national repute, the ones, the neighborhood courses, your basic golf courses, they set their prices based on what their expenses are, what their maintenance costs are, et cetera, if there's any real estate taxes involved, and then whatever profit they think they can get away with compared to their neighbors. Because you know what, as golfers, we all shop around, and we have a perception of value. And you go to a place like Cog Hill, which is, I think it was $137 before the construction, or Harborside, or some of these others. These are all upscale golf courses. And it does cost a lot of money for all the amenities and everything that you have at Harborside. When you go to Harborside, you don't have to pay for range balls. They don't nickel and dime you to death when you get there. They've got a great practice facility that if you want to stay there for an hour and hit balls, you can do that.
No question about it.
And I think, yeah, I mean, it's, you know, some people are very happy to get into a little Ford Fiesta and drive to work in that. Other people need to have, you know, something that has a little more status and makes them feel a little bit better about themselves. And, you know, I can't question the green fee at Harborside because, you know, in that business, people vote with their money. And if they've got people coming in there all the time and are willing to pay $95, it's like a guy called this show years ago, and he was an old-timer, you know, and he thought everybody should charge $26 for 18 holes with a cart. And he said, you know, he said, like Cog Hill number 4, why do they have to charge $130? I said, well, you know, it's supply and demand. Now, let's just say you own Cog Hill number 4 for the next 1 year. That's your golf course. And you come in the morning and you look at the tee sheet for the months of June, July, and August, and you've got it about 90% filled at $136. Now, what are the chances that you're going to look at that and go, you know what, that is a lot of money. I'm going to let everybody play for $55. The guy said, well, there's no way I would do that. I said, you answered your own question. You know, it's supply and demand. If they were charging too much and a big enough number of people thought it was unfair, then they'd have an empty parking lot and they wouldn't be able to make it. Now they're talking about building a third course out there.
Well, I'll tell you, I understand what you're saying. It just kind of hurts a little when you have to take that deep. But I got to tell you, they have a beautiful track out there. I have a comment about the FedEx Cup.
Sure.
Watching Kevin Streelman being on the bubble is very exciting. What did he shoot yesterday? Do you know?
I think in the 70s. Hold on a second. I had it up here. He needs to get going because he's like 2 or 3 spots out of making it into the final, and he shot even par yesterday, which puts him really very much into the middle of the pack. Hey, thanks for your call. I appreciate it, and we're cheering for Kevin. All right. Okay, I guess we have Nicole Giray on the line, so let's say good morning and welcome to the Chicagoland Golf Show, Nicole.
Hi, Phil. It's nice to be here.
Hi. You play both the Futures Tour and the LPGA Tour. You've been out there for years.
Yep.
And we've had this, the LPGA Tour came out about 11 days ago with this, you must speak English or otherwise you may be penalized and not be allowed to play next year if you don't have some working knowledge, and I don't know how they would judge that. They never told us. Some people thought it was grossly unfair and a civil rights violation. My whole idea was that you're not only out there to play, you're an entertainer because you have to be able to interface with people who've paid big bucks to play in pro-ams and entertain people. It's not only just playing golf. How do you feel about that whole thing, and has the language thing been a problem while you've been out there?
Well, I don't. First of all, entertainment on LPGA is definitely a huge component. And they need to learn how the international players should be able to communicate with the sponsors and with the spectators, and even just knowing the rules of golf. It would only help them to know English. And
right.
I mean, it's not I haven't seen it as a problem, but I'm not in the groups playing with the players. You know, I know that when I play with my group, it's real important that I, you know, entertain them and help them with their game. And sure, I'm looking at the courts and everything, but those sponsors are why we're there. So I think they expect to have a good time with us and be able to at least interact with us and ask us questions and tell stories and whatnot.
Yeah, the interesting thing is, I can't think of her name, Kate Peters, I think. She's the one that is the tournament director at the Rail Classic.
Okay.
When this story first broke, she was quoted by the Associated Press saying it's been a long time coming and this is really going to help out. Yet the last couple days, State Farm, which sponsors that tournament and a pretty good-sized chunk of the tour, has said that they were dead set against that type of policy. So you got your tournament director saying one thing, the title sponsor saying another. But I just think we're too politically correct, don't you?
Well, I think it would just benefit the players, even the international players, if they would. I think they would feel more comfortable in the country. And I know my mother's from Germany, and when she came to this country, that was the first thing that she did was learn English, because it was easier for her to get along and do things in this world. And it would only benefit the players to be able to know the language.
Have you seen any problems? And you don't have to give names or anything. I don't want you to do that. But have you ever seen any problems with the non-English speaking players when they get into a pro-am situation or anything like that?
I mean, I have heard that I have had an experience where there was an international player playing in a group, and the group was the person was unable to speak with them, and the group had decided not to sponsor the tournament the next year, and that was on a Duramed Features Tour event. Whether that story is true, I have no idea, but I mean, I think that it's important that the players can communicate with the sponsors. It really is. It's part of the deal out here, and we know that. The volunteers, we should be able to communicate with the volunteers and entertain them, and I mean, it's just a huge component for the LPGA. You know, the PGA Tour is going to get sponsors no matter what, and I don't think it's nearly as important out there. But out here for us right now in this day and age, it is really important that we're able to entertain them and communicate and interact. And even in the media, when you win a tournament and you're getting interviewed, I think people want to see you express yourself. And it's hard to express yourself if there's a translator.
What's happened to the American players? I think I looked at the money list earlier this week, and only 2 of the top 20 players are Americans. Do you have an opinion?
Yeah, it's so
besides
sad,
that they stink? What?
It's so sad. I mean, these international players are just so good. It's just amazing. And I don't know what it is they're doing. I believe that when they come here, they know exactly what they want. They know that there's opportunity in America, and they know exactly what they want, and they go out and get it. And it's their whole life. That's all that they do. And here in America, we have a lot of other things that we do. We have, husbands and boyfriends and kids, and I don't know. It seems like we have a lot more components, the Americans, to our life than the international players. They come over here with one thing in mind, and that's, to golf, to play golf. That's all they do. It's their whole life.
It's kind of a mercenary attitude, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just amazing. They're like machines. I mean, we weren't brought up that way. We would never be able to do that. I would burn out in 2 weeks. So I don't know. I mean, they're just amazing. It really is sad. I would be a lot higher on the money list without international players, but it makes the tour really strong. I mean, it's a global tour, and it is the best in the world, and people want to play where the best golfers are playing, and hopefully that's going to bring sponsors, right? Where the best players in the world are.
You're right. How is our homegrown bohemian babe from Berwyn. Wow, there's a tongue twister. How's she playing this year?
I've made a lot of progress on my game. I've been playing the Durham at Futures Tour the whole year, and I have not played as well as I wanted.
Have you ever? I mean, I could talk to players, and they're never happy.
No, you were never happy. I mean, one year, if I win 2 tournaments or whatever, you're still not happy. You want to win 3. But I feel like I've made a lot of progress on my game, and I'm going back to tour school in December, and, planning on playing the LPGA next year, and I'll be ready. I did get in 2 LPGA events earlier in the year, and unfortunately didn't quite play as well as I wanted, but, we're never happy as golfers, but I'm working hard at it, and I think that the future is going to be promising.
Good for you. Well, you hang in there. We'll keep in touch, and thanks for calling us this morning.
My pleasure, Phil. Take care.
Take care, Nicole.
Thanks.
That's Nicole Giray. She went to Nazareth Academy in LaGrange Park. That's where I met her when she was a freshman back in those days. And then she had a Hall of Fame golf career at Northern Illinois University in DeKalb. And she's been playing on one tour or another ever since. And she is just an absolute sweetheart. And she suffers from narcolepsy. I guess they have drugs now that are controlling it much better than before. But at one time, Nicole could fall asleep right in the middle of a tournament waiting to take her turn on the tee. Or this is the really difficult part for me to understand, is how you could fall asleep walking down a fairway. Unbelievable. All right, we'll take a break. We'll come back more. Your phone calls, 312-644-6767. 7:21 in the morning on a Saturday. We're starting to get a little bit of fall weather in here, which reminds me to remind you that you better get those rounds in. I mean, we all have that little list of courses we want to play during a particular calendar year. Maybe a new course, maybe something you heard about from your friends. Now's the time to look at that list, start playing them and crossing them off. Phil Kosin, the Chicagoland Golf Show. Phone lines open today, 312-644-6767. We go to Mike in Arlington Heights. Hi, Mike. Welcome into the Score.
Morning, Phil. Hey, I've got a couple comments and then a question for you, if you don't mind.
Fire away.
First off, I disagree with the way the LPGA handled it. I think that it makes sense to try to get the players to speak better English, because I've done a Pro-Am before, and I could see it being frustrating if you can't really engage with the player that you're with, and I can see that would happen. But I also like the point that Sayre Park made, that if you're just learning English and you're up there at the podium and your brain is, just thinking about your win, it'd probably be very hard to get the words out in perfect English, or even, English that you think people are going to understand, and you're all nervous. So I think that's a very hard thing to deal with, and they probably should work more on just behind the scenes dealing with it, in a more intense way versus making it public and making a rule like that. They've got to figure out how to do that.
Okay, I see where you're coming from. But first of all, this all didn't just start 11 days ago.
Right.
I had a conversation with 3 of my friends that are currently on the LPGA Tour this week. 2 of them would have been more than happy to come on the show. I'm glad we got Nicole because her tee time fit. The other 2 were teeing off early and weren't able to come on the show. But every one of them told me the same thing. This has been going on for years, and they can't get anywhere with these ladies. They're ignoring it. There's been no cooperation. There's been no effort. When they leave the golf course, they all have their little, if it's the Koreans, they have their little Korean clique, and they all stick together and speak Korean. There's no effort to assimilate themselves into our language. I mean, and it is a problem because it's a business. You're trying to sell a product. So I guess you and I agree on that point.
Oh, yeah. My other point I want to make has to do with the caller from Arlington Heights who went down to Odyssey. A couple things there. First off, it's a great course, but there are so many great courses up in the northwest suburbs that don't cost nearly that much money.
Right.
You know, Chalet Hills isn't that far away. You got Highland Woods, which is a decent, you know, Park District or Forest Preserve course. I mean, I could go on and on. You know, even Pine Meadow, that's not as far, or what's the one, Steeplechase in Mudline. I mean, there's some great courses, but if I was going to go down that way and you want to get a good value, I played Lost Marsh in Whiting, and that's only like $45, you know, to $60, and they've got, you know, decent facilities there. But I don't know if you play there, but that's a really good track for that price, you know.
Well, they had the Futures Tour. The Futures Tour played there this year. Let me ask you this, because I had gotten reports from some people that were at the Futures Tour event that the roads were torn up the normal way you'd go into the golf course, and they had difficulty trying to figure out how to get in.
It is. You've got to call the course if you're not familiar with it and get directions, but you have to go a little bit further north when you get off the tollway there, and then you got to sort of go around the back way. But it's not, you know, it's not really hard to find. I actually had to stop and call the course while I was there and get directions in because I didn't know that the road was closed. But it's doable, and I don't know how long that construction is going to go on, but I played there. It was probably a month ago, so not sure if that's still ongoing. Probably is. So the question I had for you is I've got a couple kids that are in grade school, and they have some starter clubs that are steel shaft clubs, and I notice all the kids in their leagues are using graphite. You know, I have an extra set, full set that I was thinking of cutting down for them that's also steel, and I'm just not sure for their ages. You know, they're around 10, 11 years old. Am I better off just trying to get them the graphite that's, I guess you can hit them easier for kids versus cutting down steel for them, which is harder, I guess, and a little heavier? You know, or should I even be really that concerned about it at their age?
First of all, I don't think you should be concerned. You know how we all had to have what everybody else had. I think when I was a kid, now I'm going to date myself, everybody had a Duncan yo-yo.
When I had it, that's right, yeah.
No, I mean, do you remember those days?
Oh,
everybody that went to school and when we came back from going home for lunch out on the playground waiting to go back to class, everybody had a Duncan yo-yo. And then it was a little before my time, but I remember the kids out there, the older kids with the hula hoops. And I think it's the same thing. I mean, do you have a regular golf course where you play?
Oh, yeah. Well, I play Highland Woods mostly.
Go to one of the pros there and let them see what your kids have got and make a recommendation. I mean, you know, you'd have to look at the kids' swings. I don't know what speed they're swinging at, but just to buy graphite because everybody else has it, you look at the PGA Tour, and there aren't that many PGA Tour professionals that have graphite. You hardly see it anymore. Now, is it more energy absorbing? Yes, but I remember years ago when H&B came out with a set of clubs with this energy absorbing plug in the butt end of the grip, and Chip Beck was endorsing them because he was on the pad with H&B, and I saw him at the golf show. I said, God, you got this new shock absorber inside handle on the clubs and everything? And he said, you know, to be honest, I never even knew that was a problem.
Right.
So that's what I would do, is just go ask somebody who knows what they're doing. Sure. And thanks for your call, Mike. I appreciate it.
All right. Keep it up.
728, Carl on a car phone. You hang on. Anybody else that wants to get in, 312-644-6767. You're listening to Phil Kosin on the Chicagoland Golf Show, CBS Radio in Chicago. The Score, Sports Radio 670.
Hi, guest.
7:33 in Chicago, the Chicagoland Golf Show. Phil Kosin at your service. Phone lines are open, 312-644-6767. 312-644-6767. We go to Carl in a car phone. Hi, Carl. Welcome into the Score.
Hi, Phil. Good morning.
I want to weigh in on this LPGA issue, and I think all you have to do is look at some of our major sports leagues. For instance, Major League Baseball. You've got a big influx of Japanese players, and how many of them, you look at the Ichiros, none of those guys know how to speak English, and you don't see them get interviewed, you just hear through the interpreters. Then maybe contrast to the NBA, which has as its commissioner probably the greatest marketing guru ever, David Stern. Look at the opening ceremony of the Olympics a few weeks ago. There was Yao Ming being interviewed on NBC in English, and when he came to the United States, when he first was drafted, he didn't speak a word of English. And I think you hit the nail right on the head. It's about marketing and being able to communicate to your audience. These people are coming to this country to make a living. God bless them for being able to be on that level, but they should be able to communicate to their audience that's allowing them to make this living.
Right. They're entertainers. And I think that's what people need to realize is that all professional sports, now it's big business. It's all about selling tickets, TV rights, TV viewership. It's all about money. This isn't amateur sports. And it just surprises me, Carl, that people that the ladies that come over here, and I guess Korea is the country that we're targeting on this, although there are other international players, as Nicole used that term. I like that. I hope somebody's telling them that their star can rise even higher without them playing any better if they just learn the language and become more a part of our society, because this is where they're working. Somebody made the point the other day that that most of there's a lot of money that comes into the LPGA Tour from Korean television. Big time dough. And they said, what difference does it make whether these girls speak English or not? Because so many of them have sponsors that are not American-based manufacturers or products. What difference does it make? I mean, tell me that we don't have any products in this country that are being sold to us and coming here from Korea. So I don't, to me, that doesn't make any sense, and that kind of an argument doesn't wash.
Yeah, no, they definitely have to look at what are their sponsorship opportunities in this country. Compare the size of the United States to the size of Korea, and, the number of golfers, that there's a lot more opportunity for them if they were to help learn the language. And I understand the political correctness of this whole thing, but, look at, like I said, go back to the NBA. You think that Yao decided on his own to go out and learn English? Or do you think that David Stern said, Yao, you're going to play in the NBA, you've got to learn English so you can communicate with our fans and everything else? It was never mandated, but I'm sure that they told him, learn English.
Well, if it wasn't David Stern, it was his handlers who realized what kind of an unpolished resource they had, and if they could put together the complete package and get him some endorsements and everything, it's the same thing for the girls from Korea that are playing on the LPGA Tour. And when you don't get to talk to them, when it's difficult for those of us in the media to interview those players and find out where they came from, I mean, I know nothing, and I'm not ashamed to say this because I'm mad and I've been complaining about this for years. I know almost nothing about the Korean players that are playing on the LPGA Tour, and that goes all the way back to Birdie Kim, who won the U.S. Open in kind of a surprise when she did a bob tway out of the bunker. And if they want to sell their product, they're going to have to make it easier for those of us in the media who indirectly help them sell their product by getting the word out about their players and their backgrounds and their life stories and, the whole backstory. Otherwise, you're just looking at a bunch of faceless people walking around that can play good golf, and that's not 100% of what the job requires.
I mean, the casual viewer, if they can't relate to the person they're watching, why do they want to watch it? Particularly women's golf on television.
Well, actually, that's another part of the problem, and that's why they're trying to make some changes. I mean,
they've got the right idea. They just... the execution, there may be some issues in execution, but the idea, I think, is certainly sound.
Well, I do, too. I can't argue with you on that, and that's what I wrote. And it's just too bad that in the late part of this week, I think it was Thursday, that the story broke out of California that some minority state legislators were going to seek an order of injunction against the LPGA Tour for having that rule, and they were going to end up in court in California. And the LPGA Tour, this apparently wasn't the time, because they have an event the first week of October and the third week of October in California. The first one's in Half Moon Bay, which is north of San Francisco. The other one is in the San Francisco Bay Area, and they folded their tents and went home. And it's really a shame, because when they first made the announcement 11 days ago about this new policy, they said that they had run this past their crack legal team, and they were completely okay in doing this, and it would hold up against any challenge. And the first time they read a story that somebody's going to challenge, nothing had even been filed. They folded up their tents, and I'm kind of disappointed to see that.
Well, it goes back to employment law. I mean, as an employer, the LPGA should be able to tell its employees what they can and can't do.
And it's not against the law. It's not a violation of anybody's civil rights, no matter what the ACLU or some of these other groups are claiming. You have absolutely no right to play on the LPGA Tour. That is not one of your civil rights. It's a privilege, and you have to earn your way on, just like playing the PGA Tour is a privilege. Otherwise, it'd be a bunch of fat ball guys like us out there playing, if they let anybody out there. So, I mean, it's already held up in the workplace that an employer can require that its employees need at least to have a working, serviceable knowledge of the English language. And I don't see a problem with it. I would have liked to have seen him continue with this, because I think if they would have been able to turn the screws a little bit to force the element, and like the players told me last night and the day before that I talked to on the phone, it's not all of them. I mean, it's not like, what is it, 18 of the top 20 players are international players on their money list. It's not like all 18 of them can't speak English, but it's a large enough group. And I think they're trying to draw a line in the sand, because if you look down to the minor league system for the LPGA Tour, which is the Futures Tour, you're seeing a lot of Asian players coming out there. I mean, even at the Illinois Women's Open, we have seen a lot of Asian players come, and of course they're welcome. We don't have a problem with that, and English isn't going to be a necessity, because we're not entertainment as such as the women's tours are, the professional women's tour, because we don't do pro-ams or anything like that. But I would say probably this year somewhere between 15 and 18% of the field in the Illinois Women's Open were Asian players, international players. So I think they were trying to draw a line in the sand before the problem got any bigger, and I don't know what's going to happen.
Well, I think the line that they're trying to draw was a good one, and it's a business, and people have to understand it's a business.
Who do you like in the Ryder Cup? Who do you like in the Ryder Cup?
History says you have to look at the internationals.
The Euros. And I got a feeling this is going to be another bad one. But maybe I'm wrong. I've been wrong before. But I remember 2 years ago, I told everybody on this show a month ahead of time that this could be the worst Ryder Cup team we've ever had in history, and I'm going to... Insurance. We're back. BMW Championship weekend in St. Louis. I don't know if you got to see any footage of that golf course, but they really took a lot of rain down there. From what, Gustav? Is that what came through, Dave?
Yeah, they came through here the day before yesterday, too.
Well, my trees and all the bushes and the lawn here. We thank you, Gustav. By the way, this segment on The Score is brought to you by TakeMeOutToTheCubsGame.com and also by the all-new Horseshoe Casino. Discover a spectacular destination where entertainment knows no bounds. The Horseshoe Casino, they're the ones that sponsor the Futures Tour event over in Hammond. So there you go. I've been thinking about this FedEx Cup thing, and it just... It's just like a bad-fitting pair of shoes. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you know what? I was looking the other night on the standings on the television. I was just like, well, how do they accumulate these points? What's the criteria for the points, and how do they decide how many points each guy receives after each tournament? Each player receives after each tournament. It was very confusing.
Well, did you notice that I kind of asked that question of Brian Hewitt last week, and he did his best to ignore it? And I'm not picking on Brian.
No,
it's just that none of us do. It's so complicated, and it's just, how do you expect the casual fan to participate in the excitement when the media can't figure it out?
You know what it reminds?
And they have. Go ahead.
It reminds me a lot of the judging in the Olympic gymnastics competition. And I don't know if you watched any of it when the Olympics were on.
No.
I watched about 10 minutes of it. But I did hear about the scoring controversy and everything, and I was just like, it's so objective. How can you determine a winner? And when the scores do come out, how do you dissect what the gold medalist did better than the silver medalist? I don't get it.
Well, it's all, you can't quantify athletic performance in something like gymnastics, can you?
No.
I mean, you can't just say this is whatever the number is, a 7.8 move. I mean, it's all subjective to somebody's opinion. Whereas at least the FedEx Cup, they're trying to have a structure, but nobody can figure it out. That means it's a huge failure. I mean, they've got a $35 million prize pool for the FedEx Cup. This is above and beyond what they awarded at the Deutsche Bank last week, what they're going to award this weekend down in St. Louis. This is on top of that. And I'm not in that school. I know that there are some golf writers that are way too close to the folks, way too chummy buddy-buddy with the folks in Ponte Vedra Beach from the tour. Regarding a lot of this stuff, I will never be convinced. I would never even consider the Players' Championship being the quote-unquote fifth major. Never. It may now finally have some sort of a history, but certainly not a history that can be compared to that of the four true majors. And all it is an event, and the tour, of course, this is the way they think down there. It's all about money. Look at the size of this purse. You know what? The average guy that's going to go pay $4 this afternoon to pump gas in his car and pay a little bit extra at the grocery store, he doesn't care about that. He doesn't care about that. Last year, the winner got $10 million out of the $35 million. There was a lot of complaining because it was deferred pay. So this year, 90% is going to come up front to the player. But you know what? I don't care about that. Do you?
No.
I mean, you're trying to keep your family going and trying to make a nice little life for yourself and keep some sort of a balance between, keep the wolves away from the door. Do you really care about that stuff? Because I don't. I think the whole thing is tacky. I mean, a couple weeks ago we watched the PGA Championship. The PGA Championship, they kept telling us this is Glory's last shot. Remember that? That's the big key line on CBS. This is Glory's last shot. Well, then what is this? It's like, you can't have 6 last shots. And that's what they're trying to do. To me, the PGA Championship is the end of the season and should be the end of the season, except in Ryder Cup years. And don't tell me about the President's Cup, because that's another thing the PGA Tour cooked up because they felt bad because they don't have enough events of their own. They don't own any of the 4 majors. They have nothing to do with them. So they come up with the Players' Championship, and according to the way those people think, we got to have a huge purse, and that's going to impress everybody. It doesn't. It doesn't even impress the players, to tell you the truth, except the guys who really don't count, the ones that don't sell tickets. When you have a year like last year where you have close to 100 players, many of whom played mediocre golf the whole season, that can earn $1 million just playing golf, and then all the other money that comes in on top of that, and then the FedEx Cup and everything.